Alright, what is up guys, it's Storm back here with another video, and in this one, I am going to be doing something different, and from this point on, I'm going to start uploading some Avatar videos, as I recently rewatched all of Avatar The Last Airbender on Netflix, and I've always loved the show, but I just got back into it recently, and I wanted to start making videos on it, so this is what that is. So yeah, now in this video, we're going to be going over the history of the Fire Nation, from where it first started to where it currently is now. So let's just jump right into this. In the era of Rava, predecessors of the Fire Nation received the element of fire from lion turtles that granted the power through energy bending. They could request the ability whenever they ventured into the spirit wilds, to aid in the gathering of food and resources while defending themselves from hostile spirits. These people eventually congregated to form the Fire Nation after the Lion Turtles renounced their roles as protectors of mankind. At this point, the ancestors of the first Fire Nation citizens left the Lion Turtle cities in favor of establishing settlement in the Western Hemisphere along the equator. Nevertheless, several aspects of life and observances practiced by the predecessors of the first citizens of the Fire Nation became part of the nation's culture, such as in the use of hybrid pigs as a primary means of sustenance. More importantly, the long-standing desire to conquer and expand into the unknown, such as a failed attempt by several villagers to set up a settlement in the spirit wilds, and the development of a warrior culture which depended on central leadership, emerged among the predecessors of the Fire Nation. These characteristics continue to remain prevalent as seen during the Fire Nation's imperialistic endeavors, and the antebellum period that directly preceded the outbreak of the 100-Year War. After Avatar 1 closed the spirit portals, the humans began to wage war among themselves, eventually spreading out across an archipelago in the Western Hemisphere, which became known as the Fire Islands. One group that inhabited the archipelago was the Sun Warrior civilization, which flourished and developed the original firebending techniques from dragons, but eventually went into hiding due to war, leaving a great cultural and architectural influence on the later Fire Nation. The other disaggregated states of the Fire Islands were controlled by warlords, who regularly engaged in conflict for territory. Among these warlords was Taz, who was renowned for mandating annual tributes from all of the villages under his control. Taz's policies were harsh and brutal, even once involving the abduction of children from a village that refused to provide him with offerings. This resulted in the deaths of the mothers from the village, who returned to the mortal realm as dark spirits that became known as the Militarization, who haunted and abducted children from Taz's encampment until his regime collapsed. The spirits continued to haunt the warlords until one individual took control and brought the warlords to justice. He also united the Fire Islands into a single political unit and eventually became to be known as the first Fire Lord, the leader of the Fire Sages, descendants from the Bondi tribe. At some point, the Fire Lord split from the Fire Sages, assuming political power for himself, changing the Fire Nation's religious rule into an autocratic empire, ruled by his family. The history of the Fire Nation from inception was documented extensively by the Fire Sages, who commissioned an ever-growing mural in the corridors of the Dragonbone Catacombs, which also served as the burial sites for all deceased Fire Lords. Along with the murals, numerous scrolls detailing their recorded history, personal accounts, and myths of the Fire Nation were also placed along the corridors, pertaining specifically to certain subjects in the nation's past, such as the unification of the Fire Islands by the First Lord and the origin of the Militarization. Following its unification, the Fire Nation became one of the most powerful and advanced countries in the world. The citizens developed to be resourceful and resilient, a trait that was later speculated by Iroh to be a result of living on islands dominated by active volcanoes. Its politics remained very complex and full of conflict, even though the Fire Lords held great power and controlled a standing military. Many islands retained distinct identities and remained somewhat autonomous. They fiercely guarded their resources and were often unwilling to share with other parts of the Fire Nation, let alone the central government. Countless noble clans also retained much power as well as armed forces. As a result, bloody feuds between clans were a common occurrence in the Fire Nation, binding energy and resources. The Fire Nation's government was also marked by strife and conspiracies, as the members of the royal family feuded in the quest for power. Several dynasties rose and fell, and recurring civil wars over often pitiful issues plagued the country. Regardless, the urbanization and cultivation of the Fire Nation steadily progressed. During the rule of the Fo-Cell dynasty, the Komodo rhino was first domesticated, remaining the primary beast of burden in the Fire Nation until industrialization after the 100-Year War. The Fire Nation was involved in many wars, though it experienced relative peace since the 4th century BG. Despite this period of peace, the Fire Nation's military continued to develop numerous contingency plans for all kinds of conflict, ranging from a civil war to invasions of the Earth Kingdom and water tribes. The powerful noble clans also continued their feuds, and some of them even hoped to take over the central government itself. In the time of Avatar Kuruk and the years after his death in 312 BG, the Fire Nation was stable and relatively prosperous. In 304 BG, the Fire Nation's leadership struck a secret deal with the influential Earth Kingdom sage. According to this agreement, the latter did not execute Zhu Ping-an, leader of the Yellowneck Uprising, and allowed the Fire Nation to study the rebel due to his almost extinct ability to generate lightning. After the 5th Nation pirate fleet was defeated in 296 BG, the Earth Kingdom allowed the Fire Navy to patrol the Eastern Sea to restore order in the area and rescue people who had been kidnapped by the pirates. In 295 BG, Fire Lord Sozin invited Avatar Kyoshi to the Fire Nation to celebrate the festival of Setso. The events after the Avatar's arrival would lead to the Camellia Peony War. As a result of the conflict, Zoryu resolved to break the strength of the Fire Nation's noble clans, and to have his citizens to be loyal to only the Fire Lord. This was a generational project, and Zoryu intended for his descendants to continue his policies until the royal family controlled the Fire Nation autocratically. Zoryu's project succeeded as the Fire Lords amassed more and more power during the next 2 centuries, until becoming virtually unchallenged autocrats. Unlike the Earth Kingdom that went into decline following the War of Qin the Conqueror, the Fire Nation entered an era of great prosperity and modernization. It eventually became the technologically most advanced country in the world, triggering an industrial revolution. The Fire Nation became very prosperous, excelling in trade and commerce, while also maintaining a powerful military. Avatar Roku and Crown Prince Sozin were born in this time of progress. As the Avatar, Roku became a force for balance and peace in the world, while Sozin believed the prosperity of the Fire Nation should be shared with the rest of the world, dreaming of a global empire under his rule. These ambitions led the Fire Lord to initiate a number of reforms that militarized the country. He greatly expanded the country's already powerful army and navy, and both spirituality and respect for life rapidly declined as a result of his policies, leading to the near extinction of the dragons and the brutalization of the Agni Kai. Eventually, several colonies were established in the weakened Earth Kingdom, which in turn quickly became local industrial centers. Sozin's expansionism was finally stopped by Roku, though the Avatar allowed the Fire Nation colonists to stay in the Earth Kingdom. After Roku's death in 12 BG, Sozin resumed his politics. With the coming of Sozin's comet that greatly enhanced firebending, Sozin launched his attack on the air temples in hopes of killing the next Avatar, Aang. Even though the air nomads were completely annihilated, the Avatar could not be found and disappeared. The Fire Nation moved on to the Earth Kingdom, conquering much of its northwestern territories. At this point in time, Sozin sealed the historical corridors of the Dragon Bone Catacombs, as to give the appearance that the nation's history began with his reign. Given that the entire wing of Wang Shi Tong's library dedicated to the Fire Nation was also unavailable, the restriction of the catacombs meant that very little information regarding the nation's past was accessible apart from information released by the state. The government also issued educational reforms to ensure that young citizens developed a strong sense of patriotism and were properly indoctrinated to the nation's political agendas. For instance, historical textbooks were heavily censored or modified to justify the Fire Nation's war efforts, and courses that provided opportunity for personal expression were removed from the curriculum as they were potential threats to the Fire Lord's unquestioned authority. After Sozin's death, his son Zulon took the throne and continued his father's policies. The Fire Nation built a global empire subjugating most of the Earth Kingdom and the former air nomad territories. The resources of conquered lands were used by the Fire Nation for further industrialization and extensive technological developments such as railways, steamships, and airships. making the Fire Nation the most advanced nation of the world. At the same time, an ethnocentric ideology prevailed among the military and nobility, resulting in the abandonment of Sozin's idea of sharing prosperity in favor of imperialist ambitions. In line with these policies, the fire sages that had remained loyal to the Avatar were executed on Azulan's orders. The ancient order was placed under government supervision, subverting it into little more than an aging remnant of a time where spirituality was placed before military might. The process of expansion and militarization continued, and the mass buildup of industry greatly increased toward the end of Azulan's reign. Even though many cities flourished as a result, a growing environmental pollution led to the rural population's impoverishment in some places. His successor, Fire Lord Sozin, continued these policies. His reign saw significant technological advancement, the fall of the Earth Kingdom, and the re-emergence of Avatar Aang. The Avatar's intervention eventually led to the Fire Nation's defeat and Sozin's deposition in favor of his son, Zuko, marking the end of the 100-Year War. After Sozin's imprisonment, Fire Lord Zuko began a long process of reconstruction. Under his rule, the Fire Nation resumed cooperation with the other nations to ensure world peace and prosperity. The traditional Shuyu was appointed new Great Sage, and under his supervision, the Fire Sages relinquished their loyalty to the Fire Nation government and returned to their spiritual and theological roots. These new policies, especially the demilitarization and decolonization, met the opposition of Fire Nation colonists and imperialists that began to escalate into violence by 101 AG. To solve the crisis caused by the decolonization, Fire Lord Zuko, together with Avatar Aang and Earth King Kuei, transformed the oldest Fire Nation colonists into the United Republic of Nations, ending the Fire Nation's imperialist era while at the same time allowing Fire Nation colonists to remain in their new homelands. On the other side, imperialist agitation culminated in the insurgency of the New Ozai Society, a militant reactionary organization that sought to reinstate Ozai as Fire Lord. In the end, however, their attempt failed, and Zuko remained Fire Lord for more than 60 years. He used his nation's resource to help rebuild the Southern Water Tribe, resulting in long-lasting good relations between the latter and the Fire Nation. Furthermore, the massive statue of Aang, Memorial Island in Republic City, was commissioned under his rule as a symbol of peace and goodwill. Zuko relinquished the throne to his daughter, Izumi, in 167 AG, under whom the Fire Nation aided the United Republic against the Earth Empire. Under Izumi's reign, the Fire Nation has maintained a strict non-aggressive policy when it comes to foreign affairs, rejecting its imperialist past and would only commit to war if left with no other alternative. Alright, so that was the history of the Fire Nation. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Also go subscribe to my other channels, the links to those will be down in the description below. Also go follow me on Twitter and Instagram, the links to those will be down in the description as well. And yeah, I guess I will see you all in the next video. Peace.